Hello there, my name is Pankaj Mishra. You're watching News9 Live. Well, today we bring you the top story of the day, and that is by all measures, the standoff, the diplomatic standoff between India and Canada. Amid the ongoing strain in the diplomatic relations between the two countries, the Ministry of External Affairs addressed Canada's allegations against India. India has called the accusation of Canada as politically motivated and noted a degree of prejudice in Ottawa's stance. India says Canada has shared no specific information regarding the allegations, whereas from the Indian side, very specific evidence of criminal activities based on Canadian soil have been shared with the Canadian authorities on a regular basis, but they have not been acted upon so far. India also reiterated that Canada is providing safe havens to terrorists, and at least 20 to 25 individuals were named by India over the years, but no action has been taken. On the issue of visas, India said that the high commissions in Canada are not working properly due to threats. This is the reason why India's high commission and consulates are not able to process visa applications temporarily in Canada.
Yes, I do think there is a degree of prejudice here, They have made the allegations, they have taken action on them. To us, it seems or it appears that these allegations by the government of Canada are primarily politically driven. Manish, your query was on briefing our partners, etc. Look, on this one, as I said, we have been, of course, engaged with our partners on various issues, particularly including this one. We have been discussing. If you're talking about reputational issues and reputational damage, if there's any country that needs to look at this, I think it is Canada and its growing reputation as a place, as a safe haven for terrorists, for extremists, and for organized crime. And I think that's a country that needs to worry about its international reputation. That in English, you are aware of the security threats being faced by our High Commission and consulates in Canada. This has disrupted their normal functioning. Accordingly, our High Commission and consulates are temporarily unable to process visa applications. We will be reviewing the situation on a regular basis. और किसके साथ कोई कंपैरिजन नहीं करना चाहता हूँ, लेट मी क्लैरिफाई. वहाँ सेफ हेवंस दे रहे हैं कनाडा में, वहाँ पे हम चाहेंगे कि उनके कैनेडियन सरकार सेफ हेवंस न दें, और जिनके अगेंस्ट ऐसे टेररिज्म के चार्जेस हैं उनके ऊपर एक्शन ले, और वहाँ आइदर उनके ऊपर वहाँ एक्शन ले या हमें यहाँ जस्टिस फेस करने के लिए यहाँ भेजे. मुझे पूछा गया था, आई थिंक somebody asked how many such cases were there. My understanding is over 20 individuals. I don't have exact number. That's for security agencies. We have sought either extradition requests or other kind of assistance related to that. So at least more than 20, maybe 25 individuals we have requested over, and not just recently. So many years we've been requesting, and the response has not been helpful at all. देखिए, इंडियन स्टूडेंट्स जो वहाँ पे हैं, हमने जैसे कहा एडवाइजरी हमने इशू किया है. हमारे हाई कमीशन, हमारे काउंसुलेट्स वहाँ चल रहे हैं, वो काम हो रही है. उनमें कोई दिक्कत हो उनसे कांटेक्ट करें, पर हमने एडवाइजरी में कहा है कि एहतियात बरतें, देखें क्या हो रहा है. ऐसे स्पेसिफिक कोई हमारे पास और एडिशनल इनपुट्स अभी नहीं है. ये प्रश्न किसी और ने भी पूछा था कि हमारे स्टूडेंट्स जो है उनको वीजा, हमारे वीजा पॉलिसी से कोई उनको फर्क नहीं पड़ना चाहिए, वो इंडियन सिटीजन्स हैं. और कनाडा क्या करेगी ये कैनेडियन अथॉरिटी से आपको पूछना पड़ेगा, मैं उसके बारे में कुछ कह नहीं पाऊँ. ऋषभ.
All right, so there we heard it, the spokesperson for Ministry of External Affairs, and in no uncertain terms, India calling a spade and saying that Canada has been dragging its feet as far as the action against these Khalistani terrorists is concerned. To discuss this further, the implications, what is happening, what has happened so far, and what it can tantamount to, it's my pleasure to have been joined by Ambassador Manju Seth, former Indian diplomat, Major General Sudhakarji, VSM Defense and Geopolitics expert, and Ramakrishnan Sridharan, consulting editor, is there with us. Manjuji, talking about India's stance, obviously, this has been very proactive, I would say, right from the first expulsion that happened from Ottawa's side. Within hours, we saw a tit-for-tat reaction. But where is this heading, first of all? And secondly, is it happening by the book?
It is heading absolutely downwards, and the situation has got, it's quite, strange also, I find, that the Canadian Prime Minister straight away, without having evidence, said there are credible allegations. I think was a statement which is really quite absurd. If you don't have evidence, how can you make a statement in Parliament and level these kind of allegations that in India, the Indian government is involved? I mean, you present the evidence and then you talk of the next thing, that the evidence is there. And you don't do it publicly. Normally you do it first bilaterally and then, if required, if doesn't, there's no this, and you escalate it. Anyway, that is there. They have done that, and their Prime Minister's decision on whatever his reasons are. And of course, one of the reasons I feel is because of his government's political instability at the moment. Because the MEA government, which is part of the government and supporting the current Trudeau government, is absolutely a pro-Khalistani sort of political dispensation. And it has really, I think, put pressure on PM Trudeau, I feel, and that's why this, action is, I think that could be the reason. They may have threatened to withdraw support or something. I mean, I'm just speculating. I don't have any insight in. It looks like that, and so he has taken this, made this statement in their parliament and tried to, an anti sort of government towards the government. So I thought that was not done normally. But she's just done it. And,
absolutely, ma'am. Absolutely. Ramakrishnan Sridharan joining us all the way from Washington, D.C. Good morning, should I say, Shri. Thank you so much for taking time out. Well, in your neighborhood, all is not well, it appears. And given the frosty ties, if I may say so, between India and Canada, obviously has cast a long shadow as far as the relations are concerned, and also Justin Trudeau's approach towards the United States, France and other G7 members that he spoke with. In your opinion, how does India stand as of now, first of all, and secondly, can West actually ignore India?
So, Pankaj, the point is India has made its position very clear, and I think the need now is for, in the last few days, we've seen a rapid deterioration of the relations between the two countries. Now, what, one should want to see is a quick rapprochement and coming together of the two countries to basically take a serious look at the allegation that, the evidence that India has submitted with regard to these Khalistani activists, terrorists, that India calls them terrorists. And also, Canada has to be appreciative of India's concern. So I think there's a need for some kind of a bilateral task force or some kind of a group that needs to come together to investigate the issue, because I'm sure Canada doesn't want, as a country, I mean, it's a free country, it's a democratic country, it has long been a very peaceful country. So I don't think Canada really wants to be a safe haven, as our MEA spokesperson said, for these extremist elements. I think if Canada has a case that these are its citizens, then obviously it has every right to protect, it's its duty, the government's duty to protect the citizens. But where I think Canada needs to differentiate is there any credible against any of our citizens who might be involved in any kind of activity which is destabilizing to any other nation, a friendly nation in particular. So I think that really is the crux of the issue. And what is required, I think, at this point is political will. Ambassador Said talked about the Prime Minister's coalition with NDP, and the NDP leader is a well-known Khalistan supporter. So there is a need, political will, for both the countries to recognize that these issues cannot be solved if allegations are traded at each other, and then you go down a slippery road from where coming back becomes very difficult. So I think there's an urgent need for these two countries to set up some sort of group that's able to look at the allegations that India has made with regard to the 20 people that the MEA spokesman said have been called as designated as terrorists by India, and Canada's concern and the evidence that Canada has. Because this needs to be resolved. We have a lot of investment from Canada, and now Indian startups are also looking at Canada. So there is a big traction there in terms of the investment and bilateral trade. So that should not suffer because there are other extraneous factors, for example, like the Khalistan issue, those should not be allowed to destabilize the relationship between the two nations, Pankaj. That's my view on this.
Right. Also, talking about the safety aspect of it, Major General Sudhakarji, it's not just a gang war anymore that has been reported in one nook and cranny of Canada, and time and again India has listed, as we heard also Mr. Bagchi saying, its complaints, its grievances against these Khalistani activities. So much so that Indira Gandhi also back in 1980s had complained to Justin Trudeau's father about the role of the Khalistani activists there. In your opinion, strategically, if I may ask you, what is the best possible way out as of now? And secondly, a hardened stance towards Canada, is this going to cut the ice?
Pankaj, good evening. Thank you for inviting me to your show.
Good evening, sir.
Your question has got two parts, and allow me to express myself. It has got a national, India-centric part. It has got a Canadian part, and it has got a part which needs to be addressed at the global level. So let me start with the Indian part. What is the Indian part? Indian part, Khalistani movement is not a new movement. It's been going on since 80s or maybe prior to that. I would say immediately after 1971 ops, when Bangladesh was liberated, its creation, the very concept is the creation of K2, Khalistan and Kashmir. On this paradigm, Pakistan started waging a war of bleeding India with 1,000 cuts. Okay, when Kashmir goes quiet, they will revive Khalistan movement. When Khalistan movement goes quiet, they have Kashmir. Now they have started another opening called Manipur with the connivance and support of China. So we'll just restrict ourselves to your question. So this part, India has suffered the most. We have had lots of losses of lives of innocent people. We have gone through very turbulent phases, and we have caught the bull by its horn, and we brought peace back to Punjab. Now again, they are trying to bring back or revive this Khalistan movement because Kashmir has started witnessing, signatures of very, very significant development. So that is not going too well. They have to, bleed India with 1,000 cuts. Who are they? They are Pakistan. Who in Pakistan is into it? ISI. Who is supporting ISI? It's China. So this is the nexus we have to understand. One. Number two, what is gang warfare in one country could be terrorism to other country. Absolutely. We have suffered enough, and 75 years is a long time for an independent, largest democracy in the world. Enough is enough. We need to call spade a spade. G20 has been, I think, an adequate platform and opportunity for India to have showcased its credibility and also assert its authority of plain, simple truthfulness. And that simple truthfulness is Global South. Global South has faced the agony and the anguish of pandemic, of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, or the disruption of the supply chain, or rise in price of fuel, food, and fertilizer. Everything is being suffered by the Global South, and it is a happy situation that even the leading economics in the world, the developed countries, they also are suffering adequately to realize the truth. So therefore, there has been 100% consensus on the Delhi Declaration, and hopefully in foreseeable future, things will be accepted. Now you come to the Canadian angle. Canadian angle, yes, adequately, more than adequately, to very esteemed panelists, co-panelists, they have brought out the issue. But there is a bigger issue to the whole thing. Why is it happening in Canada? This is my analysis, Pankaj, if you allow me. I feel there is a Chinese angle. Take your mind back to 2019. They have had adequate turbulence during the political, the campaigning as also elections. There was allegations and substantial evidence of manipulation because of one group in China. It is known as United Front Work Department, which Mao Zedong in his time used to call it as a magic weapon. And the magic weapon is supposed to carry out these wonders, ransomware or deep fake, carry out political manipulation, change the minds of the elite class people, penetrate to the media. So this is that. Now coming to the global part, if you allow me, the time has come, the opening has come. India needs to dig in its heel. I think the credibility factor is in favor of India. The apex organization at the global level, which were created way back in 1945, are no longer relevant. Counter-terrorism as a solution to the ongoing problem which India is bearing the brunt, I think has to be pushed, the agenda has to be pushed to a level of acceptance by everyone. Proposal was voted in the United Nations Security Council as also the General Assembly in 1996. Since then, the definition of terrorism has not been accepted. The proposals, the architecture which India had proposed has not been accepted. Thanks to 9/11, America is one of the countries, the superpower, they realized the meaning of it. But thereafter, no action has been taken. I think this is a beautiful opportunity. India has to push the agenda. Being accepted at the global level, find a solution to common challenges in the global order today. Back to you, Pankaj.
Thank you, Major General, for that in-depth analysis. And as Major General mentions, the role of China, this is something that is also finding mention in Canadian political circles and journalistic circles also. Daniel Boardman is one such journalist in Canada. Hear it for yourself what he has to say about this ongoing standoff between between Canada and India.
Yeah, I mean, trying to decipher the motivations of Justin Trudeau can be a maddening task at times. To figure out why he's done what he's done here, there is no logical explanation. There's no reasonable explanation. There's no good foreign policy explanation. But this is par for the course of Canadian foreign policy since 2015. So if you want to have some Canadian context about what's going on and why he may have done this, here's what I think is maybe the leading theory we can say as to why Trudeau has started to fight with India. You know, in Canada, we have this big specter of foreign interference from China. That's the major scandal right now. It's Justin Trudeau's Liberal Party was getting help from the CCP at different points in elections. And how much did they know? How much did they not know? There was a kidnapped 2 diplomats, the 2 Michaels, and how were there Liberals doing back channel deals with the CCP to help keep them in jail? It's a whole big thing that we need an investigation into. So in order to shift the specter from Chinese foreign interference, we have a story in Canada, which is essentially a story about Pakistani foreign interference being framed as a story of Indian foreign interference to cover up the real story, which is Chinese interference.
Now, well, a journalist from Canada pointing, conclusion or connecting it with Chinese role. Ambassador Manju, we have seen this in the past also that all roads somehow start leading to China. Everything starts pointing to China, and especially in this scenario, how best both the countries, not just India, not just Canada, but both of them could actually look beyond the obvious and try and either mend ways or find a lasting solution to it. Does diplomacy allow this much of elbow room?
Absolutely, it allows this elbow room to maneuver, but both sides have to be willing. And at the moment, it doesn't look like Canada is willing. Maybe as the Canadian journalist mentioned, it could be trying to, to sort of hide the China hand. They're blaming India for various things, but we don't know. We don't know what the real story is, but it is quite plausible. Given what is happening, in different countries and what China's activities have been. And of course, the China-Pakistan nexus cannot be forgotten. Another element I'd just like to mention here is that, yes, both countries really need to work together. And I think it may be possible only from another government after another party, another government after the elections. But even with this government, because we have had ups and downs, but we need to find a solution. If you look at the Khalistan issue, one element that I'd like to point out is that there is no traction for it within India at all. Even within the majority of the Sikhs in Canada, there is no traction. It's only a small element. And there are a number of these, 4 or 5 organizations who are also at loggerheads with each other, who claim to be, pro-Khalistani. But do they work together? I doubt very much from all reports. And for them to, for Canada to say that this is a legitimate free speech and that they have been facing prosecution in India and so they should be allowed to voice their opinion. Yes, voicing their opinion is all very good, or their protests, but to claim to make it a directed hate speech kind of thing, and for the Canadian government not to do anything. There have been these reports where they're saying all the Hindus should go back, and the consul general should be killed, the ambassador should be, the high commissioner should be killed, the Indian high commissioner. So all these kind of targeted kind of hate speech should have been stopped, or shall some action should be taken against these elements. But obviously, the Trudeau government has done nothing. It has not taken cognizance of all the attacks that have taken place, and so unless for the relationship to get back, Canada definitely needs to do a rethink, to understand what it is doing, and try and mend this relationship, which is important because as you well know, a lot of Indian students are going there every year. Huge amounts. They're contributing huge amounts of the economy of Canada by living there, by paying their high tuition fees. So many other Indian businesses are there, investments are there. So I'm not sure he would want to endanger all aspects, which Canada needs all these investments and this money for its economy, and so it really needs to find a solution. India, of course, the huge number of Indian and Indian diaspora there, we would want their interests to be protected, definitely, and so for us and investments to be protected, so we would like the situation to improve. Right. But I think it has to be on both sides.
It has to be from both sides. Obviously, it takes two to tango there. Shri, very point here that, a handful of these elements have been creating nuisance for a long, long time, which tantamounts to terrorist activities, by the way. But this is also putting the Sikhs in a bad light. I mean, we heard today Shiromani Akali Dal's leader saying that, it is putting all the Sikhs into a different light altogether and poses a lot of threat also. In your opinion, a country as big as United States, where Indian diaspora is also, almost a part of the society now, it is very much there, and so happens for Canada. So how does it become difficult, or for that matter easy also, to navigate through these challenges? Can that be used?
So, Pankaj, on your point about the Sikhs, even in Canada, I think even in India, we know that Sikhs are some of the most hardworking, enterprising, friendly, right? So there's absolutely no doubt about it. And as Ambassador Manju said, there is absolutely no support even within the community for any Khalistan, movement. And that's actually the case in Canada too. The problem is the minority, which wants Khalistan, is not just very vocal, but also violent. I'll give you one small example. About a week ago, there was a referendum held in Canada for, vote on Khalistan, informal kind of a referendum. Obviously, it has no official basis, nothing. So the group which is organizing it had touted that 75,000 people will turn up for it. But actually, just 7,000 people came for it. So there's absolutely no support, because people who have gone from India, they are focused on their well-being, their families. So these radical elements that are there, they are using not just their religion, their community, but using even terror and local gangsters to further their cause. So which is completely in conflict with what the community there wants. So that is number one. Second, a major mentioned about the United Front group that China employs around the world. So in 2021, there's a Canadian investigative journalist called Sam Cooper, who actually wrote an entire book on how China has, called Willful Blindness, which talks about how China has infiltrated the Asian gangs, the Chinese gangs in Vancouver, to do all kinds of things, which is basically to drug, prostitution, money laundering, and they're using the Chinese gangs to do all this, and in a way to fund Canadian politicians, some of the Canadian politicians, and also to control them. So this is another thing which has become a very big issue in Canada, where the Canadian voters are very, very upset that this is happening. And as Ambassador Seth also pointed out, this could be some sort of a red herring to divert attention from the larger problem which Canada faces, which is absolutely of China, which has which has acquired a lot of real estate in Vancouver, driving prices up, creating problems for the local people. A lot of the drug trade, prostitution, everything is controlled by the Chinese gangs with support from the Chinese Communist Party. So, so these are all some issues which Canada needs to focus on, and it has to realize that India is ultimately a big democracy. We are not a dictatorial country like China. We're not a communist country. We are a democratic country where, you know, every 5 years we elect a government, and therefore our issues are much more genuine than, you know, any other countries. So I think the urgent need is for both the countries to, you know, prevent this from you know, escalating to any kind of a lower, you know, kind of a point, you know, going forward to Pankaj, and start talks which will actually you know, resolve the issues that are on the table. Because Canada is a strong democratic country with strong values, and India is in the world's largest. There's no reason why these two countries cannot work together to solve whatever problems they have. I think the political will is needed to come to the table and start talking.
Indeed, valid points there, Shri. And Major General,